Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nader Narrative on Jersey First TV. This is one of those update shows that's so exciting because we talk about a lot of issues. We talk about legislation. We talk about so many advocates trying to get things passed in this state and in this country. And we've got an update on something exciting that's moving along and showing signs of real possibility. And it has to do with education freedom. It has to do with school choice. But it's not a state issue, this particular opportunity. It's something coming from the federal government. Now, if you watched the show before, you'll remember the update, but we're going to give you a little background. But be reminded, guys, even though it's a few years from COVID, what's one of the most important issues in New Jersey? And that's the issue of our education system. And boy, did it blow up during COVID when we saw that we were at the mercy of whatever the school boards decided. We didn't have a choice. We just had to do what they said. And since then, parents have gotten really involved. They want to know, what are you teaching? Why are you teaching it? And parents want choice. Parents want their kids to have the best possible outcome. And we have issues in this state. We have underperforming schools for sure. We have kids that are caught in Newark, for example, where 9 out of 10 are not reading or doing math at grade level, yet we throw so much money at it. But parents really don't get to make the choice in a real free way of what their kids experience for education. So I'm really excited today to bring back to you to the show Peter Murphy. Peter is with the group that is working on the Educational Choice of Children Act, which is moving forward. Peter, tell us first, we're going to get into this. I'm super excited. I'm glad to have you back. I want you to tell the viewers first, remind them what the Education Foundation and Coalition does.
Well, Elizabeth, thanks for having me on. It's great to be back. And it is a time of progress that we are seeing on education reform. And specifically, our organization, the Invest in Education Coalition, has been advocating for several years now for school choice to reach every child in every state in the nation, especially our northeastern region, which is very bereft of education freedom, where parents can access schools of their choice, public, private, non-residential, and we have an opportunity to make that happen in the near term. And this is not some 10-year plan we're on. We are advocating in the Congress of the United States a bill called the Educational Choice for Children Act. And what that would do is, it wouldn't import. Let me say first what it would not do. What it would not do is federalize education. It would not run education from Washington. We're very sensitive to that. We don't want to see that happen. We don't want another bureaucracy involved. What it would do, however, is it would amend the Internal Revenue Code. It would amend it would create a tax incentive for private individuals and businesses to donate and fund scholarship opportunities for children across the country. So it's simply another funding stream. It would incentivize a private funding stream for scholarships at the K-12 level. Now, when people think of scholarships, they often think of higher ed. You got a scholarship to a college.
Right.
This would actually unleash potentially billions of dollars in scholarship monies for parents to access and financially empower them to send their children to the school that they can thrive and that would best meet their needs and best be most responsive to their family values, to their it wouldn't undermine what they hold dear as a family. And so all the things that we have seen happen at the public school level, all the things that came out during COVID, parents need some level of empowerment and need a greater say in where their children are going. And so this will spearhead that.
They need it, and they also want it. You guys came out, you published on your website a poll from Real Clear Opinion that said 76% of registered voters, they're more likely to vote for somebody who's advocating or championing some kind of school choice. Now, we have a lot of different examples in a majority of states throughout the country. So New Jersey people sometimes forget that other people live a little more free than we do in other states, but there are a lot of options out there, whether they're education savings accounts or scenarios where, the money follows follows a child. But in New Jersey, we're very, very limited. We have some charter schools. We have some ability to move between districts. It's most people don't know about it, and it's really a little bit clumsy. But beyond that, there's really nothing going on. So you guys took a look at this and you said, from the federal level, how can we not control the states, but how can we open up an opportunity to really get people excited about investing in education by giving them a tax break? But here's what's fascinating about this bill is I want you to explain to everybody the difference, right? Because we talked about this last time and it's important. It's not a tax deduction, it's a tax credit. Huge difference.
Right.
Peter, explain
Yeah.
that, please.
So a tax deduction is, first of all, to get a tax deduction, that is a break off of the income level at which you're taxed. If you make $100,000 and you make a $5,000 donation somewhere, you're only taxed on $95,000 of income. It's a tax deduction. Comes off of your taxable income.
Right.
And nowadays, the way the code works is very few people now are itemizers, meaning very few people take deductions anymore because the standard deduction is very high. It was raised back in 2017.
Right.
So you don't have the itemizers. You don't have people that write off their property taxes and their charitable donations nearly as many as you used to have, because the standard deduction just takes care of all that. It's higher than those amounts. Yep. So I don't mean to get into the weeds too much, but what this bill would do is, if you make a donation to a scholarship granting organization, the amount of that donation would come off of what you owe. That is what a tax credit is. A tax credit comes off. It's a savings from your liability, from what you owe the government. And you don't have to be an itemizer to be able to get a tax credit. And so this will drive donations, not just from wealthy people, but from middle and lower income people, because of what you donate comes off of what you owe. So so you're not just relying on wealthy donors to, donate $100,000 and help 20 children get scholarships and go to schools. That's a good thing. That's an effect of you're incentivizing a voluntary redistribution of income. But now lower income people can get into that, where, hey, I want to see children. I want to help this particular school in my neighborhood. I'm going to donate to the scholarship fund, and so more children can afford to go there.
It's really, if you have a $10,000 tax bill, it's you saying, I want 5 of that to go to a scholarship fund, not to Uncle Sam. Mm-hmm. So you do have to you owe the 10K as though it were, but you're redirecting some of those funds. Interesting, Peter, when you talk about itemized deductions, in New Jersey, we're still dealing with assault, which is capping, and we're the highest property taxes in the nation, and it's capping our deductions. So, people looking for a way to, one, of course, reduce their tax burden, but two, I think the more that we see our government misuse tax funds, the more that we would like to be involved in directing those. And so to the degree that you can look and invest in a scholarship organization, and all of a sudden now the choices are opening up. Now let's talk about these scholarship foundations, because it's not just, hey, here's some money to go to a different school, right, Peter? It can be other things like, do you need some tutoring? Do you feel like your child needs test prep? It could potentially have a lot of flexibility in terms of supporting your child's education.
That's a great point. And so specifically, this comes under the guise of eligible expenses. So a lot of people might be familiar with something called the 529 account.
Right.
This is an account that you personally can save money, put it into a Section 529 account, and then by the time your child gets to college, you can withdraw that money tax-free and spend it for tuition, books, supplies, etc., computer equipment. Well, we took that concept for higher ed, and what a scholarship granting organization could do with its donations is it can award a scholarship in the same way. It could be used for private school tuition, which will be the most common use of it. But an SGO, a scholarship granting organization, can also award a scholarship for tutoring purposes, for buying computers, for something to supplement your existing education, which may still be in a district public school.
Yeah.
And that's an important provision, we felt, for a lot of areas of the country that don't have a lot of public or a lot of school choice within 10 or 20 miles.
Yeah.
And so what can we do for those communities? What can we do for families in more rural areas, or just an area, a suburban area that just doesn't have a conducive private school option, or maybe the private school is just filled,
right,
and there's no room.
Right.
At the very least, you're allowing parents to supplement their child's education with online learning or tutoring, test prep, something where they can benefit as well.
So I want to play this out a little bit because as it stands, this bill is starting to make some movement, and we'll ask about that in a minute. But I want to play it out in terms of it. Let's just say it gets passed and signed into law, and we're in New Jersey. Now, what it's really doing is encouraging organizations to form who can be a receptor of these funds and then find a way to distribute those. As it stands in New Jersey today, and probably many other places, you would not be surprised to hear that there are 501c3s who are currently doing this. I work with a group called Hope Through Education. They raise money. They're a 501c3. They give partial scholarships. The family puts something in, the school puts something in. This is what they're doing. Of course, people that give them money are doing it out of the goodness of their heart, but also they get a tax deduction, right? It's part of their deductions. So organizations like that do exist. What does the landscape look like once this passes, if it does pass completely? What happens to those kind of organizations, and what are the new organizations springing up? Because they don't have to be 501c3s.
Well, they have to be a 501c3, and what you're going to so what you're going to see is you're going to see them springing up like weeds. I mean, they're going to be 501c3s that get established throughout the country, because now all of a sudden you have $5, $6, $7, $10 billion that's out there to be accessed, to be raised. And because the ability to raise that money is exponentially easier. It ultimately doesn't cost the donor to donate to you, because what they donate comes off of what they owe the feds. Now, just an important little thing we try to say, because one of the attacks you get from the opponents of school choice is, well, this is just a tax cut for the wealthy people. And in fact, it's really not.
Yeah.
The donor is not the beneficiary here. The student is the beneficiary. The donor is the mechanism. The donor is the one who funds this, and they are revenue neutral. A business or a wealthy person who makes a donation is not financially better off because they got the tax credit. They're just financially neutral.
Right.
They have to disperse their money. They have to part with their money to get the tax credit. They're not better off financially from that transaction. They are a vehicle in lieu of the government actually spending the money in kind of a voucher form.
Right.
Instead of the bureaucracy getting involved and spending the money and risking the strings that get attached to that expenditure of money, you're not involving public sector. You're not involving public money. You're not involving the bureaucracy. You're simply incentivizing private individuals. Right. And that's a much safer space to be in.
Yeah.
If you're a religious school, if you're a private school, that you don't want the feds attaching conditions for the receipt of this money. So it really satisfies those very real concerns about federal encroachment.
So to be clear, you will have to be a 501c3. I just want to make sure I correct that. But the ones that either exist today or will pop up, there will be some education of the citizens in each state to understand what this means and the opportunity. And of course, as I imagine there will be a lot of communication near tax time when those decisions are being made. So it's very interesting to see that start to evolve as an opportunity. Now, you can't.
Elizabeth, on that point, if I may, the beauty of that approach is, from a federal standpoint, you really don't want any other way than, you don't want to use the ESA. You don't want to use vouchers from a federal standpoint, going back to we don't want to do education from the federal government.
Right.
But remember too, this model, this tax incentive model, is not a new and mysterious thing. It's been done in 22 states as we speak. 22 other states have state level tax provisions that allow for this kind of thing. Jersey doesn't, New York doesn't, which is why so much of this effort is being fought in Congress, because it's these states that are politically refusing to do this kind of thing for parents is why we're fighting this out in Congress to transcend that. But the model itself has been tried. We see how it works, and it's not a shot in the dark, if you will. We have precedent and practice for doing this kind of thing. We're just making it, from the federal tax code rather than a specific state's tax code.
Which is brilliant. And you can tell by my line of questioning, we're not used to it here. We don't, right? Because
when I state New York.
Yes. When I say we're going to need some education on this, I mean it, because, the taxpayer in New Jersey and the parents don't really understand, unless they're researching what's going on in other states. They don't understand how this all works, but it's such a brilliant approach. Now, some of these states may offer something similar with their state taxes, may choose to do that, may do that now. Like you said, there are other things going on. Of course, New Jersey, I won't hold my breath that they'll match anything there, but it's pretty exciting to imagine what could happen for us, because any way you started any kind of freedom and education is a step in the right direction. And to be clear to what you said, we're not trying to build some mammoth federal government intervention, not at all. You're using the tax code to just open up the opportunities. We still keep things, at the state level in terms of sort of local rule. So I want to ask you, in terms of support from New Jersey, we have now, I don't want to guess that this is breaking on party lines. I don't want to be a cynic, but I'm sort of wondering if it is breaking on party lines, the support of this. And do you have the support from New Jersey Republicans?
We have the support of all the Jersey Republicans. There's 3 members of Congress who represent New Jersey. They're Tom Kean from the 7th District, Jeff Van Drew from the 2nd District down in Cape May, and we have Chris Smith, longtime Congressman Chris Smith. And so none of the Democrats, unfortunately, are co-sponsoring, including Cory Booker, Senator Booker, who used to be a very outspoken advocate for school choice and education freedom. He's long since jettisoned that advocacy, and it's really unfortunate. He's one of the real standouts in changing his views,
which is unfortunate when you look at what's happening in Newark. I mean,
right. I mean, he's abandoned something he professed to once believe in, and it's so obvious. I mean, nobody's pure down there in DC, but he really kind of stands out in an ocean of
unfortunate
folks who switch their positions for political expediency. And his own hometown of Newark has been just a cesspool of failure in public education. It's a really sad development.
Very.
And what we see time and again, you mentioned polls earlier. I've never seen an issue poll so consistently and favorably among the multitude of subgroups of citizens, right? You have Democrats, Republicans, independents, whites, blacks, Latinos, Asians, parents, non-parents, rural members, city members. It is consistently polled favorably, anywhere from low 50% in some categories to 75-80% on this subject. And so and the other thing is, I think it's important to say that you can be for school choice and education freedom and not be against public education. That is a false argument from its opponents. You can be for bridge repair and public ed and school choice, and you can be for environmental protection too. They're not zero sum. Now, there is a competitiveness to expanded private school choice. There's a competitive nature, but why shouldn't there be? There ought to be more of that. The beauty of this thing, and this has been studied and documented, that when you have a vibrant school choice state or community, everybody's on their toes now. When you can financially empower non-wealthy people to become potential customers in education, that puts the producers on their toes. When another hardware store opens up within 5 miles, you're going to get some competition in that one hardware store that had a monopoly in a 10-mile radius up until now, right? It's just common sense. And the teacher unions know this, which is why they're opposed to it. I'm not
Well,
saying esoterically, that's the reason they oppose it. So
right.
it's not that all the parents are going to flock to the 3 new private schools because they have scholarships, but enough of them will, to the point where the public school community has to react and be more responsive. You are empowering parents not just to become customers and potentially move their child, transfer their child. You are empowering parents in the system to make changes and improvements to the system,
to the
of public education,
to the existing system. And
really,
I couldn't
out. That has happened in places throughout
and
the country.
wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, I think as Americans go, we have always been very supportive of our public schools. It's only been in the last few years where we were so shocked at what's going on. And New Jersey has this extremely disgusting sex education that goes down to kindergarten. It's gone across the line and we want to pull it back, but that doesn't mean abandoning it. But as I showed in those stats, and you're talking about this with the voters does not break by party line, but you mentioned the teacher unions, and their influence is probably what makes it break by party lines with our lawmakers. And in New Jersey, we have a very powerful teachers union. It is hard for me to say, Peter, that they're really about the teachers, and even less so about the children. They're about the politics. So obviously this will be an uphill battle for us in terms of what we can do as a state, but this gets passed at the federal level. That's a different thing. It's almost like a Trojan horse to giving us a little bit of freedom in New Jersey. And that's why this bill is incredible. So tell us the status of the bill today.
So the Educational Choice for Children Act has the most co-sponsorship of any legislation, certainly in the school choice arena, in the history of Congress. It's got over 150 members of the U.S. House of Representatives. It's got more than 30 members of the U.S. Senate, all of whom are Republicans. So at the moment, it's a very, there's just Republican support. One party, the Democrats are not on board with this which is unfortunate, because the likes of Cory Booker and even a guy like Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democratic leader from Brooklyn, was a school choice supporter as a state legislator in Albany when I used to work in Albany. He was a go-to guy. Dwight Evans from nearby Philadelphia was a strong school choice supporter as a state legislator. When they get to Washington, they conform, sadly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, the step forward here is we would love to see bipartisanship to reflect the voters. We'd love to see politicians step up and say, I'm going to support all my constituents, not just 80% of them, all of them. And I'm going to support parents who want better for their children within the public system and be able to access outside the public system. This is the ultimate, here's the irony, from a Democratic standpoint, this is the ultimately progressive issue.
Yeah.
You are in many ways equalizing the system for people without money to be able to access what people with money can access.
It's a civil rights issue.
Of course, it's a civil rights issue. It's a progressive issue. You are giving access to people without money to have things that only people with money can get. A private education for their children, a choice for their children in the education system. And so I think you have to sort of start with the people who are inclined to be with you. You start with them. And the challenge, I think, before us, and what we hope to get out of Congressman members Kane and Van Drew and Chris Smith is this has to be a top legislative priority for them. And there's a lot of priorities out there. There's a lot of issues out there. The Christmas tree has a lot of ornaments on it.
Yes.
There can be a big ornament on that tree because once it becomes a top priority, then it forces the hand of the Democrats members. It forces the hand of the Andy Kims and the Menendez Jr. and those folks who represent areas, Cory Booker, it puts them on the spot. Where are you? Right now, you can be esoterically for something. Josh Gottheimer is a perfect example of this. He's very congenial guy, but he doesn't have to do anything so much with this position now. Once it's put in front of him because Republicans insist on it, where are they then?
Yes.
And that's the challenge. We have to get it high enough a priority for the Republicans to say, this is what we want, and you're not going to get what you want unless we get what we want.
That's how it's done.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We got to get there. And it's important, in effect, to work with the people you have with you to elevate this on their priority list and force the issue and force the Dwight Evans and the Hakeem Jeffries and the Robert Menendez Juniors to step up and say yes or no.
That's right. Well, listen, so much is going to happen this fall. You guys have passed the Ways and Means Committee.
Right.
We've got an election coming up.
Big step.
Yeah.
The Ways and Means Committee is a big step because the bill's been vetted. It's gone through a real rigorous vetting process. Right. Members have really looked this over. They count on the committees to do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so that's a very important step, and it kind of sets it up for the next congressional session to come out of the gate to advance further.
And when is that next session?
Well, it starts in January. I mean, basically, you're done until the election comes. They may come back for a lame duck session in November or December. I think they have to, actually.
I think they do too. Yeah.
To deal with the budget issue.
Yeah.
It depending on how the election turns out, it's unlikely to see any real action until the new session comes in.
Right.
And so that's what we're really setting up for now is preparing to hit the ground running in January.
Your timing could be magical, actually. Your timing, that's why I was asking, because I'd hoped it was going to survive any kind of lame duck. So January. So again, so many things have to happen. We've got an election coming up, and obviously, what's on the ballot is incredibly important. The results of that election in all three ways, from the president to the House to the Senate, will impact, of course, the votes that you can get and how this thing can move along. In the meantime, I think, people that really look at the results they want in their lives and they don't think partisan I don't know if anyone's left like that. But anyway, we have people that watch this show that are independents. We really do. So
we can't wait for the right people to get elected. It's our job to convince whoever's in office, this is a good thing.
Right.
Constituents want this. This is a win-win for children, for adults, for parents, and for public and private education. It is a win-win. And so we have to deal with folks who are there, regardless of who wins. We continue, and we have to do our job and elevate the issue and build support, continue to build support.
Well, I'll tell you one thing it would keep people from leaving New Jersey. I don't know if you know this, but 7 out of the 10 moves are out of state. So we're bleeding, and we're bleeding good people, and they need a reason to stay. And this could be one of the reasons to start to change things here. So you are correct, Peter. We can't always be up and down based on elections, but voters matter and constituents' voices matter. So they need to let their elected officials know, hey, I want this for my state. I want you to take a look at it. So as we close, can you give the website any information that they need so that people can be armed with the information to call their elected officials?
Well, you can contact your elected officials literally by going on senate.gov and house.gov. You can also go on our website at investineducation.org, investineducation.org, and get more information about this. And let me underscore your point about the power of constituents, the power of citizens. It's there. Citizens are more powerful than the highest paid lobbyist in Washington, D.C. I'm telling you right now.
I love that.
They matter more. I've seen this. It's easy to get cynical and say, well, you got to be wealthy or you have to have a lobbyist. I've seen this with members directly. They are more responsive to phone calls and emails that come into them than they are. The highest paid lobbyists cannot overtake that kind of impact. And I've seen it up close. And I didn't believe that a few years ago.
Yeah.
On this issue, voters matter more than any other influence that confronts these members of Congress.
I love it. That's such a great way to end this, Peter. And also to my audience, please, if you go to their website, this is also a 501c3, right? You guys are driven by donations. So certainly if this is something that's a cause that you care about, consider supporting their work. I mean, they have been in this for a long time, and look how far we've gotten. Very exciting. So Peter, thank you. We're going to have you back again, like third installment.
Happy to do it. Great to be here.
And hopefully we'll be talking about it passing first part of the year. Wouldn't that be exciting? So Peter, thank you for everything that you do. We appreciate you. And to my audience, guys, as Peter said, your voice matters. So speak up, act, be well, and have hope. Talk to you guys soon.
All the best. Thank you.